Happy May Day! May Day, May Day! It's May. Everybody, we're on high alert.
So, I saw the meme for the first time yesterday.
It's gonna be May!
Of Justin Timberlake saying,
Very good.
It's gonna be May. And I died laughing. And then this morning, I thought about it again and laughed again. And I just think it's really funny.
Where have you been? That's been around for years.
I've been in the dark. I'm not up on things.
Years and years.
But it was funny. So I thought that was great. It's gonna be May.
Do y'all do May Day baskets?
May Day baskets are so cute. A couple times Grandma did that with the girls.
You're gonna make me May Day basket, right?
Yep.
All right. What are you gonna put in it?
Hugs.
This May Day basket is lame. It doesn't even have a basket.
You're weird. But
no, I'm not.
Anyway, so we are in full graduation mode around here. Catherine's graduating on Friday. We're doing a graduation party on Saturday. Family is coming into town. The house is turned upside down.
Not literally, of course.
We are taking pictures off the wall and putting Catherine's pictures instead. I told her we are turning our house into a Catherine shrine. It feels very weird, but it's cool. Yeah. So we're getting everything together. Today is grocery shopping day. Getting all the food. We're excited though, right? Are you excited to have like hundreds of people in our home?
No. Somebody sent me a meme and it said, I need a leaf blower, but for people. I was like, that is perfect.
Look at me. I think you have a piece of fuzz. Oh, no. It's just your chin hair.
Just my white hair because I'm getting old.
I had a piece of fuzz and it was a white hair.
It's a patch.
Anyway, yeah. So that's what we're doing. Hope you're having a good
riveting
week.
TV. You're like, here, let me pick the fuzz off your face. Ow, that's attached.
Why don't we go ahead and get into some actual content?
Well, I was going to talk with the people for a little bit, but...
What do you want to talk about?
May Day.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. So, May Day.
I'm just kidding. Because I know you don't want to.
I, like everything else in my life, am like, let's do this. We have to do this thing. We want to do it. We got to get it done quick and move on with our other stuff that we have to do.
But we literally have nothing else to do with this all day.
I can't even talk to you.
Well, you're going to have to for an hour. At least. I might drag this episode out just so you have to talk to me longer.
Okay, let's do this, babe. Come on.
Gather around, everybody. It's time for a May Day family meeting special.
This episode has nothing to do with May or May Day. But continue.
The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. I'm Thomas, and this is my wife, Anti-Mayday. Why don't you like Mayday?
I don't have a problem with May Day. I have a problem with you.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Hello, and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 188 of the Family Meeting Podcast.
It's May Day, everybody.
Yay. It's May Day. I wonder if we'll get any May Day baskets.
What would you put in mine?
I would put Red Bull and Amazon gift cards and that is it.
Wow. Lame.
What would you put in mine?
Nothing. You don't get a May Day basket. You don't even like May Day.
I knew it. All right, on today's episode, we're going to talk about a one-sided marriage.
Wow, you're really laughing at a kind of a serious topic.
Well, I'm just saying, right now, our marriage is one-sided in that I am trying to get down to business and do this podcast, and Thomas is being weird.
More like, and then I like May Day and you don't.
Okay. Nobody cares as much about May Day as you appear to in this podcast and on YouTube.
My mom made May Day special.
Because she made May Day baskets?
Yeah.
And you're sad because you're not going to get one?
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Love you, Mom.
Okay. So yeah, we're going to talk about a one-sided marriage, which, as you said, is a rather serious topic. And maybe you listen to this podcast every single week. You read the marriage books. You do everything you can do to improve your marriage, but your spouse is just uninterested in putting in any effort in your marriage relationship. You have a one-sided marriage, and maybe you don't know what to do. And so we're going to kind of look into that today and try to give you some encouragement and some hope. and just really dig into this topic and what it might be like.
A couple weeks from now, we're going to be in Titan, Washington for Marriage Weekend with Highland Community Church, Pastor James Kephart. We are looking forward to that time spent. And we're going to be talking about fighting in your marriage for your marriage. So a lot of times it's just fighting in your marriage. Mm-hmm. And maybe what you're fighting about is you feel like you're the only one who's putting in work, like working on the marriage, working on the relationship, or whatever else. And so we're going to be talking about, hey, let's fight in our marriage, but for our marriage. Mm-hmm. And having a great time with our friends there at Highland Community Church. The cost is $50 per couple, and we will put it in the show notes how you can register. So if you are in the Pacific Northwest, we would love for you to stop by and see us there for Marriage Weekend. And that is the weekend of, I should have this in the notes, but I don't. Let me see.
It's the weekend after Mother's Day, right?
Yes. So it is May 17th and 18th.
Okay. May 17th and 18th. Got it. Yeah, we're so excited to go up back to the Pacific Northwest. It's so beautiful there. And we have a lot of great friends who live up there, and we're just really excited to spend time with this church and with the people at this conference. So it's going to be great. Looking forward to it. Typically, when we write and record our podcast, we're writing and speaking, kind of almost assuming that both spouses in a marriage are listening with the goal of investing and improving in their marriage. Thomas and I are a team through and through, and we work together. We serve in ministry together. We are on the same page raising our children. We both are really interested in investing and improving our marriage as well.
Let's be honest, you do most of the work and I'm just the eye candy.
Yes, you are my trophy husband and I drag you around. But yeah, so we understand though that that's not the case for every marriage.
Right.
Like we understand that some of you are listening to this podcast because you feel like you're in a one-sided marriage and your spouse doesn't want to do anything or doesn't seem like they want to do anything to invest in your marriage or to improve it. And so you're just kind of trying to look for something that can help your marriage. There are some of you that are listening trying to save your marriage. And it's frustrating. I mean, it is really frustrating in whatever setting to feel like you're the only one who's trying. Mm-hmm. Whether that's your job, whether it's, a church ministry, whether that's a friendship, and especially in a marriage, that frustration of feeling like I'm the only one trying. Or maybe like so many things in our marriage, one listens to the podcast, one reads the book, and then they share with the spouse the things that they've highlighted. Now, we do that a lot.
Yeah.
You'll read a book and then you'll be like, oh, I'm reading this book. It was really interesting. This is what they said. I'll do the same to you. He'll go to a men's conference and shoot me all of his notes. I'll go to a ladies' conference and share with him my notes. And so maybe that's kind of what you're doing here on this podcast is you listen and then maybe you initiate the family meeting with your spouse and just talking about the thing that you've heard on our podcast. But whatever your marriage looks like, whatever the investment looks like, today is, this episode is for the one who's trying to save their marriage or feels like they are the only one investing in it. And we want to talk to you. We want to tell you that we care about you. We know you're out there and we are in your corner.
The first thing we want to say to you is don't give up. Mm-hmm. A one-sided marriage is difficult and challenging, but not impossible. And listen, I know, as Lysandra mentioned, when you feel like you're the only one who's putting in effort for whatever it is, there can become a point where you're just like, why am I doing this anymore? But the fact of the matter is you can stay in this marriage and it can be great in the future. So hold on to hope that God can work in your spouse's heart. Maybe they seem numb or apathetic at this point. Maybe they appear to be content to just coast till death do us part. That's okay. You keep putting in the time and effort. Don't give up. God has a plan for your life and marriage that is better than you ever imagined. And I like to remind myself of Jeremiah 29:11, which says this, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope.
Yeah, that is it's such a comforting verse. Like, to think about the fact that God has a plan and a future for us that is good. It is good in his kingdom realm. It is good for us.
Well, and if anybody knows what a one-sided relationship feels like, it's God, right?
Wow, yeah.
So when he's the one who has constantly pursued us, he's stayed next to us, drawn us, blessed us. And so there is comfort in knowing that God knows exactly how you feel. If you feel like you're the one-sided marriage person, like, you can go to God and you can pour out your heart to him. He knows exactly how you feel.
Yeah, because I think of how many times in my life where I have become apathetic toward God, and just not pursued him, not been close to him, been content to coast.
Yeah.
Been content, like, okay, I've got my salvation. I know where I'm going when I die. I've got the eternal life. God's given me a nice family. I have some peace in my life. I'm just chilling. I'm just coasting, not pursuing him, not trying to remain close. And honestly, I have some like conviction over that in my own heart right now. And so I think that is really beautiful, a beautiful point that you brought up, that God understands how that feels. And it's just a good reminder for me, like right now, to pursue God hard, not to be lackadaisical in my relationship with him. And we are saying to you, don't give up hope, keep working on your marriage. Yeah, that's going to be the thrust of this episode today. But we have to, before we get into all of that, we have to say this, even though we say this frequently. We aren't saying to stay in an abusive marriage. This has to be said just in case this is your first time listening, or you don't know where we stand on this. We do not believe that God wants you to stay in a marriage that is abusive. You need to get out and get help immediately. If your children are in there, get your children out to safety, okay? So when we say stay in this marriage and keep working at it from one side, we aren't saying be abused. Submit to abuse. We aren't saying that. So we just have to be as clear as possible on that. Just because you're in an abusive relationship doesn't mean you have to get divorced either. You can get out of the home and you can get to safety and still work on your marriage. That's fine. But don't stay in a situation where you're going to be abused every day. Get safety. And then if you want to work on your marriage from a safe place, where you have other people who can help you, like therapists and mediation and all of those kinds of things. And then if that is you, we want to recommend the book Enough is Enough. That is a book that will help you to know how to proceed if you are in an abusive marriage. So even though today we are saying stay in a tough marriage, keep working on it one side at a time, we aren't saying to stay in an abusive marriage.
Yeah, and that book is written by Dr. David Clark. Enough is Enough is the title. If you need something along those lines, if your marriage is struggling, you're in an abusive situation, not sure how to get out, that book gives a great game plan for how to be able to do that, while at the same time trying to exhaust all options to make it work. But a one-sided marriage is where one of the spouses invests significantly more time and effort into the relationship than the other. It is unbalanced and feels unfair. And here are some symptoms of a one-sided marriage. You feel alone. Mm-hmm. You feel like you're the only one putting in effort. You think there's something wrong, but they say everything is fine. You feel distant, but they seem content with that. They aren't there for you as much as you are there for them. They have little or no interest in investing in the marriage, whether that's books, conferences, podcasts, counseling, making changes, and whatever. And so those are some of those signs. Now, one of the things I think it's important to just point out right here, a lot of times we want our spouse and we want other people to only do things the way that we want them to. Mm-hmm. So whether that's working on the marriage, and we can only do that by going to this conference or this whatever. We can only do that by
if we read this book.
reading a book together, right? Well, maybe reading is not their thing, and it's a struggle for them. So maybe figuring out alternate, maybe working on a marriage for your husband is you going fishing with him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So just because they're not maybe excited about a certain avenue of working on the marriage doesn't mean they're not open to working on their marriage. Maybe we just have to find a way that speaks to them. And so if things do feel one-sided, and we were talking about this with parenting on Sunday because we started a brand new series, Lysandra and I speaking together at our church, and was talking about, hey, if you have a child who's feeling distant, I always recommend, instead of trying to pull them into your world, which we often do, just try to step into their world.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to break the ice and get things moving along.
That's really good advice. And then I wanted to point out something too. If you notice when Thomas described the symptoms of a one-sided marriage, it's you feel alone. You feel like you're the only one working on it. And the truth is, being in a one-sided relationship or a one-sided marriage is how you feel. It may not be true. So just keep that in mind. Keep an open mind to what they're going through. There is a possibility that in their mind, they're working very hard in your marriage. There is a possibility that in their mind, going to work and paying all the bills, that's what you do to work on a marriage. That's it.
Yeah.
So just keep in mind that they have a perspective too, and be considerate of that. Try to be open to how they're feeling, because just because you feel like it's a one-sided marriage doesn't mean that it is. So just keep that in mind. Now, also, let me say this. We are not minimizing what you're going through, okay? The things that Thomas just described there in the symptoms of a one-sided marriage sounds awful.
Yeah.
It sounds very depressing, tough, challenging. It sounds like I'd want to give up. I would want to quit. It sounds exhausting to be the one who pursues, to be the one who's working at it when it feels like nobody else is.
Well, and most of us have felt at least some of those in our marriage relationship at one point or the other. Mm-hmm. There's been times where we have all felt alone, so we can kind of identify that. Mm-hmm. There's times where we feel like, hey, I'm the only one putting in effort here. Mm-hmm. And so we do understand how you feel, what you're going through.
Mm-hmm. And we want to be here for you. Like, we personally, Thomas and I, want to support you. So if this description above is familiar to you, you can reach out to us. Like, when we say that, we mean it. Husband, get a hold of Thomas. Share how it's going. You need someone to listen to you and encourage you. Reach out to Thomas. Wife, I'm always available. Find me on social media. Message me. I will respond. We'll set up a phone call so that you have someone safe to talk to. Because you feel alone, you aren't alone. We are here for you. So reach out to us. Reach out to somebody, but reach out to us. Like, we are here for you. That's part of what the family meeting community is about.
Yeah, and we've definitely made it so we're not hard to find.
Yeah.
So whether you go to our website at familymeeting.org or you find us on social media through Family Meeting or our personal accounts, we would definitely love to hear from you. And here's one of the things that we do caution you about, though. We caution you about sharing too much of how things are going with family members who may give bad advice to you because they love you so much they just want you to get out. And you also have to keep in mind that when things get better, you will forgive your spouse and choose to stay, but your family may never be able to forgive them. And then they are tasked with carrying the burden of begrudging your spouse. Mm-hmm. So, if it's not an abusive situation, there's some information that your family members just don't need to know. Like, it's not really their business.
Mm-hmm. And you do need to talk to someone, because you shouldn't live life alone. You cannot do it alone. That's why we have community. God created us to live in community, and it is a good thing. But here's the thing. Talk to someone safe. A trusted friend, someone who's wise, not someone who's just going to be like, yeah, your husband sucks. I mean, somebody who is wise and who's going to come at this from like, how can I help you? How can I encourage you to work on your marriage?
Yeah, because he probably does, but that's not necessarily a reason to leave a marriage, right?
Right, and it's also not something you need to hear or have affirmed in your life.
Yeah, it's like, I already know that.
Exactly. But another person that you can talk to is a professional counselor. That's always good. You know, a one-sided marriage, going to a marriage counselor, just you alone, is still beneficial.
Totally.
It's not like, well, if you won't go to marriage counseling, we just can't go. No, you can go. Let them help you to know how to invest in your marriage from one side.
And if you're not sure, like, how do I find a trusted counselor? As Christians, we like to go to Christian counselors who understand our beliefs and our background. How do I find somebody like that? Hey, listen, go to your pastor, or call up one of the churches in town and say, hey, I need a Christian counselor. Who do you guys recommend?
Yeah.
And I know that if somebody comes to me and asks a question like that, and maybe they want somebody specific, and we actually had this happen where somebody was concerned about their child who was harming themselves. Like, who do you know as a counselor that specializes in that? Mm-hmm. Well, we've only been here a couple of years. I didn't know anybody yet. So I just reached out to all my pastor friends and say, hey, who do you recommend for this? And I got 2 or 3 recommendations within a couple of minutes that I could then give out. So they'd be happy to recommend somebody if you're not sure who to go to.
Right, because you need people in your corner who want to see your marriage succeed. The other person that you're going to talk to needs to be trustworthy. I would say it'd be very important for them to have a biblical worldview, and talk to them. But here's the person that you must talk to. You must talk to your spouse, okay? You need to be open and honest about how you feel. Now, maybe you've already done that and you didn't get anywhere, and that's okay. I'm not saying to bring it up all the time and nag, and constantly be talking about it. But if you haven't told them how you feel, you need to do that. Mm-hmm. You need to do it open and honestly, in the right time and in the right way. So you're going to tell them you love them and that you want to be close to them. You want to have a fulfilling marriage relationship. Let them know gently and calmly that you feel like you're the only one investing in your relationship. So we're not saying in the heat of the moment when he forgets your birthday or she doesn't do the thing that she said she was going to do, you just all of a sudden blow up at her and are like, I'm the only one working in this marriage. You don't do anything. You don't even care about this relation. That's not going to help you at all. Don't do that. Okay. We're talking calmly, gently, in a loving way. You're going to bring this up when there's no heat, when it's calm. Okay. You're going to say, I feel like I'm the only one investing in my relationship. Did you hear that? I feel like I'm the only one investing in the relationship. You're not going to say, I am the only one investing in the relationship, because most likely they don't agree with that anyway.
Well, and if you attack somebody, they're immediately on the defensive, and that's really hard to resolve a situation that way.
Yeah. But if you bring this up to them and they hear you and they agree and they say, man, you're right. I know I really haven't been doing what I should. You can go from there with ideas of how to invest in your relationship and how to develop a closer relationship. And we have resources for you on that. We have episodes of the Family Meeting Podcast, episode 146, 124, and episode 4 is going to address some of the ways to reconnect in your marriage, invest in your friendship, get closer. So those are episodes 146, 124, and 4. Those are just a few that we've chosen to mention today, but there's many others all along the way. So if they hear you, great, then start investing. You're going to be good.
Episode 4 goes back a ways. That's like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's been a little while ago. But great resource for you there. And one thing we want you to understand is we're not telling you to look to your spouse to provide everything you want and need in life. If you've listened to our podcast for any amount of time, you know that's impossible. Mm-hmm. Like, I cannot and was never designed to fulfill all of Lysandra's needs and be her only source of hope and strength and whatever else. There's only one person who can do that, and his name is Jesus.
Amen.
And I'll say this, that if you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus, that's the greatest need that you have in your life. Mm-hmm. If you have questions about that, please reach out. We'd love to have that conversation with you, because that's the most important thing to get figured out. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. If you are not satisfied with Jesus, you won't be satisfied with anything or anyone else either. Mm-hmm. And so We're talking about pursuing the beauty of a close marriage relationship where both spouses are heavily invested in it. So Lysandra is totally sufficient, just her and Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's the way that it should be. And I'm not offended by that. Like, I'm happy about that. That helps her to become the best person that she can become and bring everything that she can bring. And I do the same.
That's right. All right. So after you talk to your spouse, you might not get the response you hoped for, right? So we've already talked about, hey, everything's peachy keen, and they hear and they agree and they listen and they're like, yeah, let's do it. That might not be what you get. That might not be exactly what you'd hoped for. You may not get them to weep in sorrow and immediately purchase marriage retreat tickets.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're like, hey, we're flying to the Pacific Northwest to go to marriage weekend. May 17th and 18th.
That was a shameless plug in the middle.
Now, I wouldn't do this either. I wouldn't tell them we're going away on a surprise weekend and all of a sudden show up at a marriage retreat.
Don't do that to them.
We've had people do that before, and it is super awkward.
Yeah, and it doesn't get you anywhere.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Like, you walk in the door and there's all these people here, and that's your pastor, and you're like, what am I here for? Is this an intervention?
Yeah.
Kind of, for our marriage.
Yeah. And, when you approach your spouse, they may say, you know what, you're crazy. Everything's fine. Our marriage is good enough. And there's a lot of people who their good enough is not the same level that your good enough is.
Right.
Or they may become defensive and angry. If that's the case, you may have to be content to work on your marriage as a team of 2 rather than a team of 3. That's just you and God instead of you, God, and your spouse. Okay? But here's the thing that you need to understand. If it's you and God, you have an army. So just you and God are going to work together one-sided in your marriage. And it's okay. You can do this. You can stay in the marriage, and your marriage can be better because of it.
And so maybe this is you. Maybe this is exactly where you're at. Your spouse is uninterested in investing in your marriage relationship, and they aren't receptive to your request to make more of an effort. We want to give you some suggestions to help keep you going. And the first thing that you need to start doing is just praying. Hopefully you pray for your spouse anyway, but you should be praying for them every single day and for all the different aspects of their life. I think about what James 5:16 tells us. The prayer of a righteous person has great power as it is working. And there is power in prayer. You do not have it in you to change anyone. You're not going to change your spouse. And we tell couples this as they get ready to get married. Listen, if you're going in this hoping they're going to change, and you're going to be able to change them into what you want them to be, like, you might want to rethink that plan. Mm-hmm. People change over time, but you don't have the power to change them. God does have the power. His Spirit has the power to change people, to work in hearts and lives. And so you should be spending the most of your time that's about your marriage just going to the one who can change things. Mm-hmm. And then letting him do the work. Not, hey, I pray, but also I leave hint after hint after hint, or I nag and I beg and I plead and I cry. No, just start by going to God and pouring out your heart to him. How you feel about your marriage, what you want, like your desires and all those sorts of things. He loves to hear from us.
Mm-hmm. The next thing that you're going to do as you keep working at this marriage from one side is you're going to seek to bless your spouse in any way you possibly can. You're going to constantly look for avenues to bless them. 3 John 1:11 says, "Beloved, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil has not seen God." So if you know the Lord, if you know Jesus, you're supposed to be doing good. Just because they maybe are doing evil toward you, or that's how it feels, right? It feels like they don't care, they're apathetic, they are not interested in working in this marriage, they are numb. Don't imitate that behavior. Don't become that way yourself. Rather, imitate good. Show them I'm going to love you anyway. I'm going to do good things for you. And I know it is hard. It is so hard to come home from work and to like bless your spouse with cooking dinner if they have not even like said I love you for months. They have not given you a hug. They have not shown any interest in like spending time with you. And here now you're going to cook them dinner and serve them. Like that isn't natural. That's not something you just want to do. That's something you make yourself do. That's something that God gives you the power to do divinely, divine power from God it takes to bless somebody who is not blessing you.
Well, and I think about what Jesus said, he said to bless your enemies, and in doing so, that you will heap coals of fire on their head. And I think if it's that effective on your enemies, how much more is it going to be on your spouse? Mm-hmm. How much more of an impact is that going to make? That's going to work way more effectively than begging and pleading them to read this marriage book with you, or trying to guilt them into going to marriage weekend. Like doing the good things for them, it is going to be effective. If Jesus said it's effective on your enemies, it's going to be effective on your spouse, even in an even greater way.
Yeah, for sure. So what I want you to do right now, you who feel like you are in a one-sided marriage, and those of us who don't, right now we're going to think of one good thing we can do for our spouse this week. So before this episode airs next week, before we have another episode come, so that's one full week, what good thing are you going to do for your spouse? Think of something good you can do to bless them. All right, I've got mine. Do you have yours?
I do.
Okay. What else?
You're up.
Give love freely. Give love freely. 1 John 4:19 says we love because he first loved us. God's love is what drew us in. He pursued us. We didn't pursue him. And also God's love is unconditional, and your love for your spouse should be unconditional. So my love for Thomas is not based on whether or not he acts like he loves me.
Yeah.
My love for Thomas cannot be based on whether or not he does the things he said he would do. My love for him is not based on his behavior. It's based on God's character. God loved me, and that's why I love God. God loved me, and that's why I love others. God loved me, and that's why I love Thomas. So you are needing to give them unconditional love freely. And sometimes when we feel like we're the only one putting any effort into our relationship, we want to withhold love to teach them a lesson.
Yeah.
This is classic Lysandra.
Yep.
Yeah. If Thomas is not behaving himself,
which is rare.
Yeah. I want to like not let him hold my hand, or I turn away from him in bed, or I look out the car window, my window, not his. But yeah, I'll give him that cold shoulder, silent treatment, whatever. I want to withhold love because I don't think he's acting right or treating me right. Now, this is something I fight against and I've gotten a lot better at, but that's natural within me. And it's not natural to love when someone doesn't love you or they don't act like they love you.
It does take a change of thinking. Mm-hmm. Because literally that's most of the world. Is we give love based upon performance, but that's not true love. Mm-hmm. True love just gives and gives freely, mm-hmm. And so we need to be pouring out our love on our spouse, and as we've mentioned before, in ways that they can feel it the best. Mm-hmm. Which is one of the reasons why, when Lysandra is showing love based upon my performance, she withholds physical touch because she knows that speaks volumes to me. Mm-hmm. So the next thing is we need to forgive often. Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you." And we think about how forgiving that God is to us. That's the same way that we need to be forgiving to our spouse. Every time they show disinterest, that gives me an opportunity to show forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Every time they kind of reject my pleas to work on our marriage, it's an opportunity to show forgiveness. And think about all the times that we hurt God, that we fall short, and he forgives us anyway. And so we need to be willing to forgive our spouse the same way that we have been forgiven. And you're like, well, you don't understand how many times this certain thing has happened. Well, I understand how many times I've done the same thing against God, and he keeps on forgiving. And so we need to give that same forgiveness. As God in Christ forgave you, that's how we need to forgive.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then next, you're going to look for the good. Look for the good in your spouse, because when you're in a one-sided marriage, all of a sudden, all the bad stuff they do becomes huge.
And that's all you can see.
It's all you can see. Just negative after negative after negative. Oh, well, she walked in and didn't even give me a kiss. Oh, she walked past me and wouldn't make eye contact. Oh, he went to work without saying goodbye. Like, whatever it is, we see the negative constantly. So what you're going to do now is you're going to look hard for the good. You're going to do whatever you have to do. Maybe the good is simply that they still are there.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all you can really see at this point is, okay, well, they haven't divorced me yet. They haven't left. Then you know what? Focus on that. This person is faithful to me. They're here.
Because even that is something to build on.
It is. Yeah. We did a whole podcast on this, on looking for the good. So if this is something that you need help with, go back and you can look at that podcast. But Proverbs 11:27 says, whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it. If you search for the bad of your spouse, you will surely find it, because it's there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is there, right? So if you look for the negative, you're going to find the negative. If you look for the good, you will find the good. So you're going to start intentionally, on purpose, looking for everything good that your spouse says and does.
Like, you can the negatives just show up. Mm-hmm. It's like somebody sets up for a graduation party early that makes it a lot more work to set up for the podcast, a hypothetical podcast. And so, double the work when we didn't have to move that furniture yet. It's just, you know what I mean? You can find the negative if you're looking for it.
Yeah, and then you can passively, aggressively talk about it on the air.
This was all hypothetical.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm going to hypothetically slap you across the face.
Which we would not recommend.
No.
We do not recommend physical violence.
We do not recommend that. So search for the good. I'm searching really hard for good in Thomas, and I don't know, it's probably there somewhere. I'm looking.
This cute smile.
You're lucky you're cute.
So once we've looked for the good, now we need to be thankful for the good and verbalize it to them. So 1 Thessalonians 5:18, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. So there is good to be found, and we can give thanks for it. And one of the ways that we can kind of soften somebody's heart is to verbalize that to them and to show them how thankful that we are because they went to work and they go to work every day hard for our family to keep the lights on, to pay the bills, even if it's something as simple as Lysandra said, maybe it's just the fact that they're still there. Like, hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for always being around here. There's a lot of, husbands, or there's a lot of wives or whatever that they're never at home. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for coming home and being with me. Mm-hmm. So even little things like that. And I encourage you just to make a list. Just go down and make a list. Try to think of everything you can, all the good things, and then don't vomit all of it out at once. But just, hey, every couple days or whatever, just look at the list and find one of the things to be thankful for, and let them know. It's amazing how something small like that can soften somebody's heart. Just something so small like that doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't take a lot of effort, but it can go a long way in drawing somebody close to you.
Yeah, I know that, like, when I go work, when I go to a job and I'm painting and stuff and I'm tired and I'm worn out and there's so much else I need to be doing, Thomas will often send me a text that says, thank you for working hard for our family. And, like, I cannot even tell you what that does for my heart as I'm, like, tired. It, like, gives me energy. It helps me to keep going. It means a lot. And so think of those ways to thank them. And ultimately, what we want to do is encourage you to not give up on your spouse. Don't give up on your marriage, and especially don't give up on God. God is powerful enough to save your marriage. God is powerful enough to help you keep going one-sided for as long as you need to. Okay, he can give you that strength. So we just want to encourage you with words of affirmation. We understand that it's hard. We know you're tired, but you have been doing it this long and you can keep doing it. And you can even do it better. You can do the one-sided marriage even better than you have been by doing some of these other ideas, praying for your spouse, praying for your marriage, forgiving them, loving them, finding the good, thanking them for the good. Your one-sided marriage can be great, okay? And what we are praying with you is that one day your one-sided marriage will be a two-sided marriage, and we can rejoice with you in that.
So here's family meeting tonight, just you and your spouse. And you're going to have a conversation about how much effort you feel like each of you are putting into your marriage. Like talking about 1 to 100 percentage-wise. What do you feel like they're putting in? And having a conversation about that. So I feel like I'm putting in 95%. And she's like, I feel more like it's 35. There may be some discrepancy there about how you feel versus what they feel. And having an honest conversation about why. Okay, so you say 95, explain that. Yeah. I feel like it's 35 and this is why. And having a good conversation. Now, obviously, you have to be in a good place, a better place. Like you're not already arguing and uptight and about something. Because this can be a little difficult conversation to have if you don't necessarily agree on where each of you are at. And so having that conversation about how much effort each of you are putting into your marriage.
Thanks for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or you can email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we talk about the upcoming holiday, Mother's Day.
That's a holiday?
Yeah, it's a holiday, honey. So our episodes drop on Wednesdays. So when this episode of Mother's Day drops, it will be just 4 days till Mother's Day. So we're going to give you some ideas of how to make Mother's Day special for your mom or for your children's mom this year. And we're going to share some of our best and worst Mother's Days.
Yes. So this will be like a last minute warning for all you guys out there to make sure you get it done for Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody, and a wonderful May Day. This meeting is adjourned.
May Day!
Yep.
Wow, that was a great May Day episode.
I agree.
I can't believe I missed the holiday. This was a great opportunity for us to do a whole May Day episode.
Yeah.
And
literally on May Day, you just blew it.
I blew it. Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, guys. I want to apologize to you YouTubers. I'm very sorry. I messed it up.
I feel like that could be a great episode.
We could have had like a little May Day basket.
Yeah, a big one.
I could have made him a May Day basket and presented it to him on YouTube during the recording of the episode.
Yep.
But I did not.
There's always next year.
Hey, it's the thought that counts, and I'm thinking of it right now.
Yeah, it doesn't really count. I don't know who thought of that saying, but not a good one.
It actually is the thought that counts for me, as long as people really want to do something for you, even if they don't do it. Like, if they want to, but they couldn't, or they...
No, if you want to, you do it. You do the things that are important to you. There's very few times in life where you actually want to do something and something hinders you from doing what you want to do.
Okay. You're right.
So, I don't think it's a good saying.
I didn't want to make you a May Day basket.
I know you didn't. You didn't even think about it. It's not even that the thought counts. You didn't even think about it. You didn't even know it was May Day, did you?
I did not know it was May Day, but I did know it was the day before your mom's birthday.
Yeah, which is May 2nd, which means the day before that,
May Day.
All right. Have a great May Day.